Welcome to the European Parliamentary Research Service podcasts.
In this podcast, we'll talk about the impact of COVID-19 and the possibilities of another major pandemic striking Europe and the world. We'll look at different scenarios and analyse possible responses and its impact on our lives and societies. Stay with us.
Empty streets. A silence, broken only by siren sounds. The uncertainty, the fear. Images and feelings we'll all remember forever.
Truth is, COVID-19 has shaped the world in unprecedented ways. It has infected over 500 million people globally and caused more than 6 million deaths.
In the EU alone, 130 million cases and 1 million deaths had been registered by April 2022. And the real numbers are surely much higher.
The pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns have also cost millions of jobs and trillions of euros in economic losses, triggering the greatest depression since the 1930s. And the impacts go well beyond the health and economic ones we just mentioned.
It has also worsened mental health, increased gender violence and social inequalities, disrupted our education systems and cultural industries, and we could go on and on.
And despite the fact that vaccination figures continue to increase, with 65% of citizens worldwide already having received at least one vaccine dose and 75% in the EU, many challenges remain.
Pressure on healthcare systems, slow economic recovery, supply chain disruptions, higher energy prices, question marks surrounding the global distribution of vaccines and vaccine copyright, the development of new pharmaceuticals, and the emergence of anti-vax extremist groups.
With all this in mind, what lessons have we learned? Is another pandemic inevitable? And how should the EU react next time?
Europe is still grappling with Omicron, and new lineages continue to emerge that are even more virulent, such as BA2 and XE. They have been creating havoc in Southeast Asia, the US, and are bound to hit us soon.
But not all is bad news. While it's difficult to predict when the COVID-19 pandemic will evolve into an endemic state, the World Health Organization expects it to happen at some point this year. That's if people worldwide keep on getting their jabs. This is Dr. Tedros, Director General of the WHO.
As we enter the third year of this pandemic, I'm confident that this will be the year we end it, but only if we do it together.
Once it reaches an endemic state, COVID-19 could see an annual seasonal curve similar to influenza, with an autumn-winter peak in the EU. The severity of the disease will then depend on individual risk, affecting mostly the elderly and those with underlying health problems.
However, the emergence of new variants and even a new global pandemic cannot be ruled out. But how do pandemics begin?
Well, an infectious disease can turn into a global pandemic when three major risk factors interact: the pathogen, the host, and the context. The success first of the causing agent of COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, and later of its Delta variant, lies in a recombinant spike protein that increases attachment to host cells in the human body and boosts the survival of the virus.
The second factor is the strength of the immune system, which can be affected by eating habits, exercise, or mental health. And then there's the context, which can include environmental conditions, hygiene conditions, as well as sociological, geographical, economic, and political risk factors.
Part of preventing a new pandemic involves learning lessons from the current one, not least in relation to the public response. Here's Luisa Antunes from the European Parliamentary Research Service.
The preparedness for future threats will depend on the collaboration of governments worldwide and on the coordination between international health systems. The European Council is working together with the WHO on an international treaty on pandemics to put in place a global surveillance system, as well as to ensure the universal and equitable access to vaccines, medicines, and medical equipment. At EU level, the European Parliament has voted to reinforce the role of the European Medicines Agency and the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control. We also need to invest in the research and development of new medicines and vaccines and public health services. But COVID is not only a health crisis. Preparedness will involve structural changes in EU action and policy in different areas, such as food security, employment, economic development, and climate change.
If COVID-19 taught us something, it's that nothing should be taken for granted, so preparedness is key. Here's the director of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, Andrea Amon.
We cannot be complacent when it comes to surveillance, pandemic preparedness, health system capacity, and nourishing international cooperation among public health institutions.
In the future, crisis preparedness and management will depend on three main factors. One is the detection and surveillance of new variants. Another is continued vaccination, which, even if not offering full protection, has proved to save lives and limit the effects of long COVID. And let's not forget that the European Medicines Agency is currently reviewing potential new medicines against COVID-19.
Having said this, protection measures such as wearing masks, ventilation and social distancing will continue to be crucial to prevent the spread of the virus.
The European Health Union initiative draws on the lessons from the pandemic, laying the framework that will allow the 27 EU member states to work together to better detect, prepare, and respond collectively to future pandemics.
The Health Union package includes proposals to strengthen the European Medicines Agency and the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, as well as a regulation on cross-border health threats.
HERA, the new European Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority, will strengthen the EU's ability to prevent, detect, and rapidly respond to cross-border health emergencies by ensuring that vaccines and therapeutic products are produced quickly and made accessible to all. Here's the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
We cannot wait for the end of the pandemic to repair and prepare for the future. And this is why we will be putting forward proposals to improve our ability to collectively respond to serious cross-border health threats. We will strengthen our medicines and scientific agencies, and we will build a new European agency for biomedical advanced research and development. And we will build the foundation of a stronger European Health Union in which 27 countries work together to detect, prepare, and respond collectively.
HERA will also ensure the availability of critical technologies and production sites necessary to develop medicines.
While supporting its objectives, the European Parliament has called for more transparency and accountability, not least to increase citizens' trust in public institutions and to ensure that vaccines are available to all. Belgian MEP Mark Botenga has closely followed the work of the Parliament's Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic.
When faced with a pandemic, everyone should have access to life-saving medicines or vaccines. So we need to avoid that private pharmaceutical multinationals get monopoly rights on these vaccines, especially when they're funded with public funds. So we need to increase pressure to make sure that indeed technology transfer is done and patents and other intellectual property rights are lifted for everyone to get access to the vaccines and therapies.
There's still a lot of work to do to increase the resilience of our health systems and ensure we'll be able to act faster and more effectively next time a pandemic strikes. But the European Union is working on it.
Want to know more? Check out Luisa Antunes's full policy brief on the EPRS website or in our app.
This is a European Parliamentary Research Service podcast.
Thanks for listening.